Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sanov and you are watching A News. Let's see the top stories shaping our world. The second day of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit is underway in the Chinese port city of Tianjin. Protesters in Israel demand to end the war in Gaza and return the hostages. And the deadly earthquake hits Afghanistan, killing more than 600 people. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev held a series of high-level bilateral meetings in Tianjin on the sidelines of the SCO Summit. Talks focused on regional security, energy, transport and investment. Our correspondent Leila Rahimli has more.
The second day of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin is continuing, bringing together more than 20 heads of states. Discussions today centered on regional security, economic integration and connectivity, with a particular emphasis on strengthening cooperation between Eurasian states under the Shanghai spirit. Against this backdrop, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev held a series of important bilateral meetings on the sidelines. He first met with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The two leaders reaffirmed the strength of their brotherly and strategic alliance, highlighting cooperation in energy and transport. They also discussed about SOCAR's collaboration with Turkey's BOTAŞ, stressing the significance of delivering Azerbaijani gas to Syria through Turkish territory with Qatari financial support. Both sides also emphasized new joint energy projects abroad, as well as the strategic value of the recently launched Kars-Iğdır-Dilucu railway line. The normalization process between Azerbaijan and Armenia was also touched upon, with Erdogan's stabilizing role in the region highly appreciated. Later, President Aliyev sat down with Maldivian President Mohamed Muizzi. Both leaders recalled their earlier discussions in Baku during COP29, underlining progress in political consultations and cooperation in trade, tourism and investment. Direct flights and visa facilitations were highlighted as key steps to boost people-to-people ties. President Muizzi extended an official invitation to Aliyev to visit the Maldives, which was gladly accepted. President Aliyev also met Jin Ligun, president of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. They praised the strong partnership between Azerbaijan and AIB, especially in green energy. Talks focused on future cooperation in the Middle Corridor, metro construction, water projects and renewable energy. The meeting concluded with an exchange of a joint declaration on strategic cooperation. In other key engagement, Aliyev held talks with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif. The Pakistani leader thanks Azerbaijan for its unwavering support during recent tensions with India, while Aliyev emphasized that brotherly ties with Pakistan will always come first. The leaders reviewed trilateral cooperation with Turkey, celebrated recent achievements in the peace agenda with Armenia, and discussed deepening trade, investment and government-to-government initiatives. Prime Minister Sharif also praised the Asan service model as a project to be implemented in Pakistan. These bilateral meetings in Tianjin highlighted Azerbaijan's cooperation agenda across the energy, transport, investment and regional security, coinciding with the second day of the SCO Summit. And shortly the SCO Plus high-level meeting will begin. Then Azerbaijani leaders set to take part, where important statements from world leaders are expected. And that's all for now. I am Leila Rahimli, Elbrus Musayev for A News.
On the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, the President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev met with Prime Minister of Armenia Nikol Pashinyan. The two leaders discussed the Azerbaijan-Armenia peace agenda, underlining the importance of constructive dialogue, mutual trust and regional stability. They also noted the positive momentum generated during the recent Washington summit, where the international community reaffirmed its support for advancing peace and normalization between Baku and Yerevan. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin says progress made at this August summit with U.S. President Donald Trump could help resolve the crisis in Ukraine. Speaking at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Forum in Tianjin, Putin praised proposals from China and India aimed at facilitating peace. He also highlighted what he called constructive understandings reached during the recent Russia-U.S. meeting in Alaska. Remaining with the war in Ukraine, the European Union is hardening its position on Moscow, pushing for tougher sanctions and keeping frozen assets linked to reparations for Ukraine. This follows Russia's latest deadly strike on Kiev, which killed dozens and even damaged diplomatic missions. A News now recaps the week's key developments.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said it is impossible to return frozen Russian assets unless Moscow pays reparations. She spoke before a meeting of EU foreign ministers in Copenhagen this week. The EU has frozen about 210 billion euros of Russian assets under sanctions over the war in Ukraine. Ukraine and countries like Poland and the Baltic states want the EU to confiscate these funds to help Kyiv. But France, Germany and Belgium oppose this, saying only profits from the assets are set aside for Ukraine.
We see that Russia does not want peace, although there are a lot of diplomatic efforts made to bring Zelensky and Russia to the table. We can't possibly imagine that, if there is ceasefire or a peace deal, that these assets are given back to Russia if they haven't paid for the reparations.
At the informal meeting of the EU's foreign ministers in Copenhagen, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen stressed to keep up the push on Russia.
We need to build up even bigger pressure on Putin. I think it's quite obvious that he's just dragging the time, trying to buy time and divert their attention from his continued attacks on civilians and infrastructure, and most recently also EU representation in Kiev.
The Kremlin will stop at nothing to terrorize Ukraine. That's according to the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who expressed outrage after Russia's drone and missile attack on Kyiv on Thursday. The assault killed 23 people, including 4 children, left dozens injured, and damaged the European Union delegation's building in the Ukrainian capital. Von der Leyen announced that Brussels will soon introduce further sanctions against Moscow.
We will come forward soon with our 19th package of hard-biting sanctions. And in parallel, we are advancing the work on the Russian frozen assets to contribute to Ukraine's defense and reconstruction.
According to Ukrainian officials, Russia launched nearly 600 drones and more than 30 ballistic and cruise missiles, the most intense assault on Kyiv this month. Many of the victims were killed when a 5-story residential building collapsed in the Donetsky district on the city's left bank. Alongside the EU mission, the Azerbaijani embassy in Kyiv was also damaged in the blasts. Windows were shattered and the consular roof cracked, but Azerbaijan's foreign ministry confirmed there were no injuries among staff and the embassy remains operational. Meanwhile, the Kremlin said on Thursday it was still interested in pursuing peace talks over Ukraine, saying that both sides were continuing military strikes, but that Russia remained committed to diplomacy.
Looking to the Middle East, where in Israel, families of hostages held in Gaza gathered in Tel Aviv to demand a deal with Hamas. Their protest came as the government discussed expanding its military offensive in Gaza.
More than 150 people gathered outside Israel's military headquarters in Tel Aviv on Sunday, calling for urgent action to free hostages held in Gaza. Family members and protesters placed 48 empty chairs in the street, one for each captive, and read out their names so cabinet members would not forget them. Chants of only public pressure can bring back the hostages echoed through the crowd. The protest was timed to coincide with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet meeting.
We are in front of the cabinet meeting that's going to be held here in a few minutes. And what we've seen is a prime minister that had demands from Hamas that Hamas accepted. And even though that Hamas accepted the terms of the deal, the prime minister is not willing to discuss and to approve a deal that he wanted.
Families of the hostages accuse the government of ignoring opportunities for their release.
The only thing that they are discussing is how to intensify the military actions in Gaza, which puts at risk my son as well as 47 other hostages.
Israeli officials say 48 hostages remain in Gaza, with 20 believed to be alive. Families say time is running out to bring them home.
Turning to the war in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis is deepening, with hundreds of thousands facing famine and severe food insecurity. Aid agencies warn children are being denied education, while safe evacuation from Gaza City remains impossible.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is worsening as thousands face famine and severe food insecurity. The UN Relief and Works Agency reported that around 660,000 children in Gaza have been deprived of schooling for the third consecutive year amid ongoing Israeli strikes. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East described the conflict as a war on children that must stop, and called for an immediate ceasefire to allow children to return to school and normal life. The World Food Programme and the Integrated Food Security Phase classification have warned that parts of Gaza are experiencing famine conditions. Around 514,000 people in Gaza City and surrounding areas are severely food insecure, with numbers expected to rise in central and southern districts. In July alone, over 12,000 children were identified as acutely malnourished, the highest monthly figure ever recorded, and a six-fold increase since the start of the year. The World Food Programme said aid deliveries have increased to about 100 trucks per day, but remain far below the 600 trucks needed daily to meet demand. The International Committee of the Red Cross warned on Saturday that a mass evacuation of Gaza City is impossible to conduct safely or with dignity, as many civilians cannot move due to starvation, illness, or injury. The IPC report stressed that famine could soon spread to other parts of the enclave if access and aid delivery are not scaled up.
We'll be back after a short break. Stay with us.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
in one of the frontline areas of Ukraine. Being here and seeing things, talking to people, we can clearly tell that the war has changed drastically since its beginning in 2022. Or maybe not. Is that really the case? The war has been going on since 2014.
Ратифицировать подготовленный для подписания договор о вхождении Республики Крым и города Севастополь в Российскую Федерацию. Не сомневаюсь в вашей поддержке.
У 2014 році Росія прийшла до нас з одним словом, з новим словом. І це слово «війна».
Гармата! Some people serving here, they have been in military in this war so long, it's difficult for them to tell how they will be able to return to a normal civilian life. The story of all those people who can withstand aggression, withstand grief, and withstand their lives changing forever.
Тяжело, но держусь. Держитесь и вы, все, кого я знал и с кем я был. Слава Украине! Победа за нами!
Join me, Nick Summerby, on A News. From my days playing in the Premier League to working as a broadcaster for the channels like Al Jazeera and beIN Sport. I've never been afraid to ask the tough questions to find out what's really going on behind the scenes of the world's biggest sports teams. We'll be taking you inside the latest stories, stats and dressing room secrets of the world's biggest teams.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Welcome back to A News. Now we will take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. China has expressed support for Azerbaijan's full membership in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Chinese President Xi Jinping said in a statement. However, A News has learned from diplomatic sources that India once again blocked Azerbaijan's membership bid, contradicting the very principles of multilateral diplomacy and the Shanghai spirit. Multilateral diplomacy is generally understood to mean that bilateral disputes should not be brought into the multilateral agenda. Yet India has continued to do just that. According to sources, New Delhi's obstruction is widely seen as a retaliatory step linked to Azerbaijan's close brotherly relations with Pakistan. A diplomatic source told A News that India's move changes nothing for Azerbaijan, but it once again revealed to the international community the petty and short-sighted nature of India's policy. One more important piece of news coming from Tianjin is that Pakistan and Armenia have taken a step toward establishing diplomatic relations after years of estrangement. The agreement was sealed Sunday with an exchange of a joint communique between Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar and his Armenian counterpart Ararat Mirzoyan on the sidelines of a Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin, China. Pakistan cut off contact with Armenia at the start of Armenia's war of aggression against Azerbaijan and consistently refused to recognize Yerevan diplomatically, labeling it an aggressor state throughout the occupation. Islamabad also played a key role in the adoption of UN Security Council resolutions addressing the occupation of Azerbaijani territories. Sources told A News that the latest move has been coordinated with Azerbaijan. According to information obtained, consultations between Baku and Islamabad followed the recent meeting between the leaders of Azerbaijan, the United States and Armenia in Washington. An official Baku doesn't view Pakistan's step as problematic. Observers describe the initiative as part of Azerbaijan's broader peace agenda and the direct outcome of the Washington talks on 8th of August, signaling a potential new phase of regional diplomacy. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan met in Tianjin on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. The two leaders underlined the importance of steps to promote stability and peace in the region. They also called for constructive approaches to build mutual trust and expand regional communications. Both sides agreed to maintain dialogue moving forward. Now, the text of a memorandum of understanding signed between Azerbaijan and the United States on 8th of August in Washington has been made public. The document outlines the creation of a strategic working group tasked with drafting a strategic partnership charter within 6 months. Under the memorandum, the two countries agreed to strengthen cooperation in energy investments and regional connectivity, as well as in defense, counterterrorism, trade, artificial intelligence, and digital infrastructure. The deal will remain in force for 1 year, with an option to extend by mutual agreement. A magnitude 6 earthquake struck eastern Afghanistan, killing at least 622 people and injuring over 1,500 in Kunar and Nangarhar provinces, authorities said on Monday. The quake destroyed homes and razed 3 villages with mountainous terrain and blocked roads, hampering rescue efforts. Helicopters are being used to evacuate the wounded, while teams race to reach remote hamlets with a history of earthquakes and floods. Taliban officials said all emergency teams had been mobilized to provide food, medical aid and security. The disaster adds strain to Afghanistan, already facing humanitarian crisis and limited international assistance. Now, Pakistan is reeling from catastrophic floods that have claimed more than 850 lives and forced over 1.5 million people from their homes. The hardest hit area is Punjab province, including Lahore, with swollen rivers have swept away houses, leaving many to take shelter in temporary camps.
Pakistan is grappling with catastrophic floods that have displaced over 1.5 million people across thousands of villages in the northeast. Authorities say more than 850 people have died nationwide this monsoon season. Torrential rains and the release of excess water from Indian dams have swollen the Ravi, Sutlej and Chenab rivers, inundating more than 1,400 villages in Punjab province. Thousands of homes have been destroyed, forcing families into temporary shelters, including in Lahore.
The floodwaters have risen alarmingly high, almost reaching 1.5 stories. The water came so swiftly that we couldn't salvage any of our belongings. Now the area is inaccessible due to the water level, and we're forced to live in tents on the road, unable to return home.
India, which routinely releases water from dams when they reach capacity, said it had issued 3 flood warnings to Pakistan this week as a humanitarian measure. Punjab authorities confirmed at least 12 deaths last week, while residents like Mohammed Nazir face devastating personal losses.
There has been a loss of 1.5 million rupees. My house must have been swept away by the water. Not a single thing would have been left. There were solar panels there. Everything must have been destroyed. Not a single thing would have been able to be saved, nor would the house be saved. It was a 10-mala house, built piece by piece.
With monsoon rains continuing, officials warn that the humanitarian crisis in Punjab could worsen in the days ahead.
Two remarkable sights now. Turkey's Kerempe Lighthouse has stood watch over the Black Sea for 140 years. Built in 1885, it remains both a key maritime guide and a symbol of local heritage.
The Kerempe Lighthouse has been a guiding beacon for sailors navigating the Black Sea for 140 years. Built in 1885 by the French, the lighthouse is perched 82 metres above sea level on the cliffs of Kerempe Cape.
This is the second most protruding point on the Black Sea coast. For generations, sailors, fishermen and ships have relied on this lighthouse.
Once powered by oil lamps, the lighthouse now operates on an electric system, flashing every 20 seconds to alert vessels. It stands as one of the most significant navigational landmarks on Turkish northern coast.
One sailor once told me he got lost at night but saw the lighthouse and followed its light back to shore. He said, "Thanks to this light, I made it home."
The lighthouse has been closely tied to local heritage, with generations of keepers serving there for decades. Today, Kerempe Lighthouse continues to provide safety to sailors and fishermen while remaining a cultural symbol of the region.
Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for more updates.